The key to success on the field and in your backyard is a comprehensive game plan. So if you're building a fence or a deck this year, trust a Turkstra coach to design, quote, or order the right materials for your project. Visit a Turkstra Lumber near you to learn more.
From the Ticats Audio Network, this is the Coach O Show with Luke Tasker.
Last episode of the regular season for the Coach O Show with Luke Tasker. We're rolling into Ottawa this weekend, coming off of the victory against Ottawa at home at Tim Hortons Field, and the playoffs are locked in. Hamilton will be at Montreal Sunday, November 6th at 1 p.m., but not quite yet. One last game to play here. Coach, to start, just congratulations on solidifying your playoff spot.
Appreciate it. Thanks, Luke. No, it's obviously a great feeling, something that we've worked hard for and battled and grinded, and congratulations to you guys too. We get to keep this thing rolling.
That's right. More episodes to come. Looking forward to it, and we'll talk after the regular season is finally finished and leading into the playoffs and get ready for all of that. But Coach, at this point in the season, you know, not a year free of adversity or hardship, hard times, and most seasons are not. But your team certainly had their fair share of injuries and early struggles, and now you've won 4 out of the last 5 games. I mean, do you feel good about the level of play at this point?
Well, I feel good about the direction we're trending. Our best work's going to have to be ahead of us. What we've done so far is good enough to put us in this position. Just super proud of everybody for staying the course, sticking together, staying together during unreal adversity, and it's just, I'm just excited for the opportunity to win a championship. And, every year there's 3 teams that aren't afforded that opportunity, and the goal is always not to be one. And so once you get in the tournament, so to speak, anything can happen, and just excited for that opportunity.
As a player or coach, have you ever won as the 3rd place team?
Good question.
Yeah, sorry to put you on the spot there.
No, it's a fair question. As a player, I'm trying to think. So the ones as a player, no, we finished up top with the bye or not. And then as a coach, we played the semifinal game, but we were at home against Edmonton when I was in Toronto in 12. And then, I think all of our runs, even with you, Luke, I don't ever remember being in that spot. So great time to start.
There you go. I love it. And certainly been done before by 3rd place teams, but exciting. You said you're trending in the right direction, and there are certainly some things to like, and we'll get into some of the good about the Ottawa victory. What are you still waiting on from your team? What do they still need to get to as far as on-field performance that you haven't seen yet from the 2022 team?
I'd just say consistency in, we're getting more consistent in 3 phases. I would say at those points in the game where you have a chance to go up by 2 scores, mainly, those type of things, specifically maybe up 17. The reason I say that is 2 touchdowns, 2 extra points, puts you at 16. When you have those opportunities to do that and really get up and change the complexion of a game, that part we would like to do more consistent. What I am very proud of, though, is, we're finding a way to win the close games. And some might refer to that as finishing. But we're finding a way to play a little bit more consistent down the stretch and make timely plays consistently. But you'd like to be able to separate yourself when every game isn't going to present itself like that. Sometimes you're going to have to win it by, a low baseball score by just a few points. But there are some opportunities sometimes in a game where you have the opportunity to go up by those 2 scores, and I think you need to capitalize on that.
Yeah, the thing that's changed to me about this team as far as their progression, like a journey from preseason until now on the edge of playoffs, is we've said this in the broadcast. It seemed like to get a win early on when we were struggling for that first win, it had to be perfect. I mean, everybody had to be right in the right spot at the right time. And you specifically now, you look at this last Ottawa game, Calgary and Sask, not perfect games by any means, but you beat some good teams. I mean, Ottawa's playing pretty good football, even though they don't have wins to show it. Calgary certainly is a good team, and you guys found ways to do that while not playing perfectly. Do you recognize that same progression with this team?
I do. There's a little bit more room for error, and that's, it usually proves favorable when you take the ball away. And when you can do that, you can offset some mistakes. But when you make mistakes and you don't take the ball away, it just usually doesn't turn out favorable. But then there's, that unconquerable will to win. I don't know where that measures up in analytics, but there's something to be said for that. And then, obviously football is a physical sport. So when you show up physical and you have a, like I just referred to, in like an unconquerable, desire to win, sometimes you can offset some physical mistakes out there. There's just every football game, we're coaches, we're never satisfied, but I think the most critical stat in analytics is winning, and we're finding a way to win.
Does your team have that desire to win more so than other teams you've been a part of? Like, separate the stats and the offensive production, take all that, the skill away. Is there something unique about this team as far as that desire to win?
I wouldn't say more so or not. I just think every team finds it in different ways. I would say with your teams, Luke, when you were here, there was just a level of expectation from the beginning of looking left and right and not letting those people down. Despite what the coaches may say, you were, dang, I'm letting my teammates down. And every team finds that at different points, and at first everybody's just trying to make the team and trying to feed their family. And, you kind of can't help but look after yourself. And I'm not making my plays, and you get a lot of I words. And all of a sudden you're like, wait a minute, losing's not fun. And you kind of, your teams kind of already had that. Even though we didn't have great starts, it was about, okay, let's get our, what together. And let's do a little bit extra. And I think every team finds it at different points. So I wouldn't say that this team has it anymore. I'm saying we found it.
Yeah. The veterans, as I think through that, the group of experienced guys that you have this year, is it a top down thing, or can you give some of that credit to those older guys for this team having found that sort of will to win in these games?
Well, if I'm being completely transparent, the majority of our leaders are on the 6 game, and when you struggle early, when you have the challenges at quarterback, who was a captain. You have Chris Van Zyl, who you can't replace that experience. You have Simone Lawrence on the 6th game. You have Seontae Evans on the 6th game. You lose a Nick Cross. You lose a Curtis Newton. Braylon Addison. These people that have been there before didn't exist. So where does that leadership come from? And I think this team had to find different leaders, because it's hard to lead from the side and from the back. It's a lot easier to lead out front. And when you can't be out front, there's something about presence, right? You're just easy to reference because we do this show. And, that's what I just appreciated. It's like when I looked at you as a leader, it was the presence you brought. And that could have just been in a huddle that nobody saw, not because of what you said. And so sometimes it's just being there, knowing that you've been there before, you looking at Speedy saying now, or you looking at Jalen Saunders saying that's enough. And it was well received. You can't just get that unless you've been there. And so circling back to your original comment, I just think we had to find different quote unquote leaders. And that just doesn't happen because you stand up in a room or because you have a meeting and say, you're the guy now.
That's great. I remember one of the things that we talked about a lot in 2019, your first year as a head coach, is that, you don't need 60 leaders out there. You need like 58 great followers, and I think, well, it's a stranger to everyone. So I might as well tell the story, but I'm at a soccer practice with my son the other day, and a kid's, misbehaving, and they're young kids. My kids misbehave sometimes. He just wasn't doing what the coach is saying. and the parents saying, "Hey, get in there. You got to be a leader. You got to be a leader." And Coach O came to my head, and I'm thinking, no, he doesn't. He needs to be a follower right now. Like there's already a leader out there, and he's not following. And it's true for adults and grown men in football too. And a great leader, sometimes that just develops into a good mentality, and it certainly seemed that way. You've got young guys. Tim White had a breakout season, if you want to say that, and even Seth Small. I mean, you got young guys who are making real impacts in the game, and so it's a development, man. Your team has all of a sudden found a way to win games, and that just wasn't the story of the first half of the season.
No, it wasn't, and it takes time, and there's not anything to blame. It's just trust. It's hard to lead without trust. There's just so many things. We could do a half-hour show on that, but trust takes time. And sometimes trust has been broken by a lack of work ethic. So now all of a sudden that person wants to lead, and people are like, look, come on now. Like, I hear you, but I don't feel you. And it's not a personal malicious thing. It's just like, you have to have already walked the walk and embody it. And then, some people are just innately quiet. So it's taken us a little while. We definitely haven't arrived, and that's what's exciting. This isn't the best football team. This isn't the best we can be. That's why I said I like the way we're trending. Got a lot of work to do, and I think everybody would recognize that. But again, there's nothing wrong with saying that we're excited at the opportunity to win a championship in 2022.
Yeah. This last weekend, obviously, it wasn't just your win. The Stars sort of aligned across the league, and Sask lost to Calgary on Saturday, and Week 20 went exactly like Ticat fans had planned it. It's just what you want. And so what that leaves you with is one, air quotes, meaningless game as far as the playoff situation is concerned. And so as a coaching staff, do you turn the page to Montreal right now?
Yeah. We've talked about that today, and the answer is no. And that's not because that's what you're supposed to say. Like, we have an opponent ahead of us. We still need to prepare like it's a meaningful game and go out there. You can't play scared. We're not going to be able to rest everybody. This isn't, everybody on the practice roster gets to play and everybody else sits down. We're not afforded that type of luxury. Yes, you hope there wouldn't be any injuries, but you hope the same thing in the preseason. And I say this every year, and I still echo it. It's, if you play somebody, and if you play a veteran in the preseason and he gets hurt, you get asked why. And then if you don't play him and he's rusty in game one, you say you should have played in the preseason game. So you can't play scared. You can do smart and you can do it. But at the end of the day, it's a physical game. We've seen let's use you again, Luke. Day 3, hamstring decided to act up on you, and out you went. Had nothing to do with the game. Had nothing to do with you being out of shape. It's just one of those things that happen. And you just have to go about your business and the process the same.
Yep, didn't travel to Vancouver that year. My favorite city, favorite place to play, and hamstrings will come up when you don't least expect it. That's the way it goes.
I remember that.
Yep. As far as game planning, is it sort of an opportunity to sort of work on things? I guess I sound strange wordage for the last game of the season, but almost like a preseason game. Do you sort of test some things out in a game plan sense?
I would say that there would be a small percentage of that may go into it. But other than that, you're going to do what you do. You don't want to go out there and reinvent things and ask these players to do a bunch of things they haven't done before. But to say that you wouldn't try something out that a thought in the back of the mind would be a little bit misleading also. So there'll be a small percentage of that. But other than that, the Ticats will be recognizable.
Yeah, very good. The for some of your young players, and of course, like you said, you're not going to do a full, platoon exchange here and it's going to be recognizable. But for some young guys, this is surely kind of a big game for them on a personal level, a chance to maybe try out or get on the field for what could be the first time this season, and sort of a tryout, not for playoffs, but for next year. How do you prepare those guys for a game like this?
Just to be prepared, right? To be prepared, to be as in shape as they can, and like I said, unfortunately, everybody that deserves an opportunity that's been in the waiting room is not going to get that opportunity. There is a salary cap. There is a whole other side to it that we don't need to get into on this show, but it's just not as easy as saying, hey, thanks for waiting it out. You're up. It's just not that easy. So for those that may get an opportunity, it would be prepare. This is your time. Hopefully, which is a little facetious, but you would hope that everybody's preparing every week like they're going to play. Now, you and I both know that that's a lofty goal, but it's still a great goal to have. Mm-hmm. And I think the difference is that they're going to have to give themselves a little bit of grace. Because if they are out there with the A group, it's going to be moving a little bit quicker than the scout team. Or if you're in a compete period, you're not getting any reps. If it's just good versus good, if it's A's versus A's all day, you're really only getting a little bit of work in Skelly and maybe inside run and maybe a little bit of special teams.
Yeah.
So, and I think, being able to mentally be prepared for you're going to need your second and third win, period. It's just going to happen.
Absolutely. The speaking of A's versus A's, and you got a week heading into this game, which what we've talked about, not a playoff factor, but still a football game. And then you go to Montreal. Will you change the practice routine? Is this going to be a light week here, or do you go heavy this week, light the next week?
Yeah, we're going to we'll be a little bit lighter than normal, Luke. Yeah. We're going to go. It's going to be somewhat in between a day 3 and a day 1. We're not going to go we'll be a lot closer to an hour and 20 minutes than we are to 2 hours for sure. So this will simulate more of a day 3, and we'll have one where we go about regular time, and that'll be on day 2. Mm-hmm. And then because of the playoff shifting to Sunday, you're actually afforded a day 0 if you're interested in something like that for your ball club. But I could imagine that would be light for us also.
Sure.
Just because we're going to have quite a few starters that are going to play this week. And so, right. Every team's going to be in the same boat. I can guarantee you that, I know that the fans' perspective is to rest people and how could you? But I think if you watch league-wide, you're going to see that whether it's the Ticats or anybody else, because everything's all solidified across the league, they still have to play another game too. And I think what you're going to see is you're not going to see, 15 changes per team like the outside may anticipate.
Yeah. Speaking of fans, Coach, let's get to our fan question of the week. Remember, you can send a question in for Coach O. We pick one every episode to ask, and you can send those to gameday@ticats.ca, and we may pick yours for next week's question. Coach, this week is from Rob. After watching the CFL for many years, it appears to me that there are an inordinate number of penalties called on special teams compared to other facets of the game. Number 1, why are there seemingly so many penalties in the punting and kicking game? And number 2, why are players not more careful in avoiding illegal blocks, holdings, no yards, etc.? That's from Rob. He says thank you, and he is a Ticat fan residing in Montreal.
Well, we appreciate it. We look forward to seeing you, Rob, in Montreal. I think that's a fair question, and I wish I had the analytics in front of me to say that there has or has not been more penalties on special teams this year. I can tell you one penalty is down this year is the no yards, and I think the emphasis of it being a 15-yard penalty no matter what has really brought about a change there. When it comes to the return game, I just think if you really watch the game, you're allowed to do almost whatever you want on the line of scrimmage. And now if that's grab, hold, now once you try to break away, that's when the penalties are called. And I just think everybody's different in that realm. And so what I'm trying to paint a picture for you is if you could picture a punt return where you're firing off on the line and grabbing the guy, and then he tries to break free and he breaks outside of your frame. Some people know when to let go and some people hold on. And if you hold on and there's a jersey pull, it's going to get called. And it's kind of like the old adage that holding could probably be called on every offensive play at some point, and then some are called and some aren't. I think the quickest way I could answer it is what we try to talk about, Rob, is if you leave it in the ref's hands, it's going to be 50-50 at best. Right? It's refed by human beings that make errors. And as much as I'm sure they want to keep their flag in the pocket, they still have to call a game that doesn't get out of control, or you're going to get fights and all kind of other things. So I do think coaches do a decent job, Rob, of trying to prevent that, but ultimately the coaches don't play. The players play, and they just have to. It's different from team to team, understanding what a disadvantage it puts your team at when you take those penalties consistently.
Yeah, that's great. And I agree, Coach. No yards just kill me. I mean, my blood pressure rises when I see no yards penalties because of when you take the field as a receiver or quarterback or an offensive player and you have to march back. It's just so hard to do that for those return game penalties and all of that. And the other thing is that for every special teams play, especially in the punt game, you're going from an offensive player to a defensive player. So you're going from blocking to getting blocked. And in that exchange, I always thought it takes a lot of athleticism to do that without holding a jersey, on either on one side or the other. So it is just a difficult field to be in. But Rob, I appreciate your question. Fans, remember gameday at ticats.ca. That's where you can send your questions in for Coach O. The Coach O Show with Luke Tasker is presented by Turkstra Lumber. Check out the project coaches at Turkstra Lumber. They can help with every part of your home reno, from designing a deck to ordering a new front door. Learn more at turkstralumber.com. And, of course, send your questions in for Coach O each week. Coach, we'll meet back up here a week from today after you guys head to Ottawa and as you prepare for the playoffs. Coach, best of luck this week, and we're looking forward to the last game of the regular season.
Thanks, Luke. Appreciate it. Been an awesome season so
Thanks,
far.
A
lot more to go.
More episodes coming, guys. Everybody tune in. This will be an exciting couple weeks here.
Another episode of the Coach O Show with Luke Tasker is in the books. Let us know your thoughts. Email us at gameday@ticats.ca. Coach O and Luke are back next week to discuss the latest from the locker room. Subscribe to the Ticats Audio Network on Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts.